You're about to see an interview that I did with Jack. Jack is a former psychology student of mine back from my days when I was a college psychology professor, and he's now in graduate school training as a therapist. So we talk all about perfectionism and Jack's journey of recovering from perfectionism, how he's been able to untangle some of that over time. What are some of the tips that have been helpful for him, some of the deeper realizations about his own identity and how he relates with other people that have helped him to untangle and come out of some of that perfectionism. So if you're someone who struggles with perfectionism or with anxiety, I think you're really going to appreciate what Jack shares with us. And we also touch on as well, like advice that he would say to someone who's going through, the college application process when you're in high school, or the graduate school application process as well as a college student. And I also don't want to fail to mention that if you're someone struggling with anxiety, we can help you with that. We have an online anxiety program. It's called Peace to the People. And it's designed to help you move forward with the next steps in your friendships and your education. Teaches you tons of tools, as well as a long-term, deeper strategy called exposure for overcoming anxiety. So if that sounds like a good fit for you, the first step is to check out our free webinar, and you'll find the link below in the description and in the pinned comment below as well. The first step is a free training for parents. If you're a student, you can either send that link to your parents, or you're welcome to watch the webinar as well. But you'll learn 3 keys for overcoming anxiety, and you'll also learn more about how to join our program, Peace to the People. All right, without further ado, here's the real story with Jack. Hi, Jack.
Hello.
Thanks for being with us here on the channel. That was my first very hard question for you. It was hi. And a few things that I always start out these conversations with. This is a conversation between us as human persons. So for anyone listening, Jack is not my therapy client. This is not a therapy conversation. And I guess I should say we are both therapists, but we're not having a therapy conversation. We're just having a therapist or humans too type of conversation. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so this is just for educational and entertainment purposes. And basically, Jack and I are going to chat. And where should we start, Jack? I mean, sometimes I start with like, how do we know each other? Is that an easy enough question?
Yeah, that sounds pretty easy. Well, Dr. Parke, or Jackie, she was my professor in undergrad. I took many classes with her and just got to know her over the years of my 4 years of undergrad. And I think she was honestly a really big influence in just my development as a really, I think as a therapist, and over at least my undergrad, I learned so much and so many valuable things from her. And first off, I just want to say thank you for even just having me on. And it feels so like full circle that I get to talk to you. And honestly, it's a pleasure to be here and to be talking to one of my old professors. So, yeah.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you to say, Jack. And I feel like the honor is all mine because, you were always just such a wonderful person when I had you in class and got to know you outside of class as well. And just couldn't be prouder now seeing you, go through grad school and become a therapist, and just so excited for you. And, I mentioned this before we started recording, but now it's like you're going to be my colleague, so... Mm-hmm. So thanks for being here and being willing to hop on a video call and chat.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's great to be here. So
awesome. Well, I know before we hit record, again, we were sort of chatting about like what is kind of a theme that we could focus on as we,
Mhm.
as the listeners get to know you, as you and I have a conversation. And I was so thrilled. This is going to sound weird, but I was thrilled when you said being a recovering perfectionist.
Mhm.
So that's probably a weird thing to be thrilled about. But I was just like, yes, this is such a juicy topic that so many of us struggle with. Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. I've just talked to so many people in my life, and even now, like there are so many people in my life that are like, yeah, like I'm this perfectionist. Everything's got to be a certain way, and um, I always kind of laugh at it sometimes. Not in like, oh my gosh, like how dare they, but um, I feel like for me personally, um, perfectionism has been something in my life that, like, yeah, it's whether it's school, whether it's like cleaning the house, or whether it's whatever it is. I always used to be so like on top of it and making sure that the paper that I'm writing is the absolute best paper, and I'm up till like 3 o'clock in the morning
Mm.
editing and fine tuning it, um, and so I kind of lived my life like that, where I was constantly editing, not just a paper, but like who I was as a person, the way I presented myself. It was always, yeah, how do I make myself more of a final draft? How do I present
Mm.
myself in this perfect way? And what I realized over the years was I was getting really, really, really exhausted, constantly being this um, essentially like putting this image of this final draft, when how I was feeling inside was like, wow, actually, yeah, I don't really feel like a final draft. I feel like I'm like ebbing and flowing and changing and growing, um and so yeah, I think for me, um just like recovering perfectionistic, um this idea, I think for me it was like, wow, like I've seen the control of like perfectionism in my life, and how it influenced me, and how like it just grabbed me and kind of held me down in a sense. And so um yeah, I think the last few years I've really been trying to be in this healing journey of, yeah, how do I be imperfect in front of others? Because how do I be human, really, essentially? And
Mhm.
um yeah, so that's a little bit of my understanding of what I'm talking about here. But yeah, yeah.
Wow. Okay. And that's such a powerful like metaphor when I hear you say like I I'm really not a final draft, but I'm trying to like edit myself all the time to
Mhm.
present myself as a final draft. And I was just thinking, yeah, we're all just like, I don't know what you'd say. I guess I would say like we're all just a work in progress. So we're all just like
Mhm.
a rough draft, and
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, yeah, and that is interesting. Yeah, it's we all are like a just a rough draft, and I think that is so okay. Like we don't have to have everything together. Like there's so many things in our life that are constantly coming at us, and there's so much pressure, and there's like, even right now, I think like all the stuff that I'm thinking that I have to do even this week and this next week, it gets overwhelming, and like I can even feel it in my body sometimes. I'm just like, this is so much. um, and I think the idea that I do have to have it together, I mean, it brings it to a whole another level of anxiety, of feeling frustrated towards myself. And um, yeah, I think it's just led, at least this perfectionism has led to a lot of anxiety for me over the years. And I want to do things well. I want to, it's like I want to be a good therapist. I want to, present, if I'm going to go to a job interview, like I want to do it well, and yet, yeah, being perfect it's impossible to do. And so yeah.
Yeah. I sometimes find that there's this painful irony, and it comes up with the students that I've known in the classroom, like yourself, and it comes up with some of my therapy clients, where part of what's really difficult about like recovering from perfectionism is that it has served them well in school systems, and it has been rewarded. I'm sorry, is this painful as I say this?
Yeah.
It's been rewarded and reinforced in systems, right? And those systems, I think especially the school system, but it can also be spiritual communities that we're a part of, friendship groups, sports. So I mean, yeah, sorry for bringing up such a painful I don't even know what my question is, but how do you navigate that for yourself? That these systems kind of like reward it.
Yeah. It's hard. I think there's a lot of, me just mourning that, because it's everywhere, like you do think about like the school system, and like there's a pressure to get, good grades so you can make it in, to a good college. And then it is a lot. And I think a lot of different, not just education, but as you said, like everything almost revolves around this. Like if I do well, then, then I'll be rewarded for it. And I think growing up, that idea for me, it's like, I wonder what I at least needed in any of those moments where maybe like, yeah, I didn't get such a good grade on on a test, and what is the teacher going to say? What are my friends going to say? What is anybody going to say? And so it is interesting, because this inner critic, this person inside of us is telling us, we need to do better, or else people won't see us. And it's interesting, because I think that's maybe a lot of people's experience. I think that was my experience. And also, yeah, I think there's so many other people just around us that feel that exact same way, that feel like they have to have it all together, that like put their head on their pillow, and they're thinking about, yeah, like how could I have said that differently, in that conversation? Oh, like I screwed up on this. And yet, yeah, we're not so fast to look at, yeah, what are things that we did well on? What are things that, yeah, we're still learning? And actually, it might not look like much. We might have gotten a C on something, and yeah, there was something in here in this paper that you actually did very well on. And yeah, it's like this. It feels very transactional, and I think that's the hard part. And I think I look at my own relationships now, and I'm like, yeah, I don't want my relationships to be transactional like this. Like I want us to be human. I want us to come together on this, no matter what, this person is going through, no matter what they, if they're doing great, or if maybe they're not, maybe they're, like having a hard time in life, and yeah, coming alongside them, picking them up and saying, you know what, like, it's okay. Like you are doing like what you're able to do under the circumstance. And I think especially with kids, it's like developmentally, like, yeah, maybe they're not going to do so great in school because they want to go play outside, like that's just
a crime.
Yeah, it's a crime, like I can't believe that, really, so
it's a shocker.
Yeah. And I think we have lost that, at least in culture. It's like we just need to be adults at such a young age. And I think that also makes me sad that so many people on so many kids and even me like feel this pressure to be at a different place in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, to be in a place of maybe it's performing, like whether that's, performing academically for grades, which can feel very transactional and really loaded in a weird way with approval and shame. For some of us, it's like performing, in a sport or performing musically or, yeah. And when I was hearing you talk about that, I was like, oh, we lose play really early. I almost feel like one of the hardest battles of my adult life is to recover my own ability to play.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. I think about like, one of my professors now, I'm like finishing grad school right now. And she, one of the things she does with us, like a couple of actually classes, a couple of weeks ago, she basically had us create a story together. And, for like an hour, like we, like each person went down, like she would ask them for like a word, and then the next person would add a word to the story, and the next one would add a word to it. And we literally made sentences and then made a paragraph. And at the beginning, everybody was kind of like, why are we doing this? All this stuff. And over time, like everybody was like laughing, and like we were just like looking at like how like hysterical the story was. And she made meaning out of it. I mean, she's, also like a psychologist, and like she was just, like telling us, yeah, what does this story mean? What is this group trying to say right now? But then at the end, she was like, and yeah, like for a moment here we were all like playing. Like there's something about like we lose that somewhere along the lines of our childhood to now. It's like we're not all of a sudden not allowed to play anymore. We're all of a sudden not allowed to do all these things, and yet maybe that's the actual thing that we need to express ourselves. Maybe that's the thing that we need to say, yeah, maybe we don't have to take life always so seriously. Maybe we don't have to, like, and I'm saying that as a therapist, it's like,
yeah,
it's like, yeah, like things in life are going to suck at times. And like, it's going to feel really heavy at times. And it's going to feel like, yeah, I am so anxious, or, I'm so overwhelmed, or I'm so sad about this. But yeah, I think that it also informs, yeah, the joy in life. That it informs the beauty, the light. And one thing I was thinking about, something recently that I was thinking through was just, I was thinking about, I don't know if you've been to Seattle before, but like rains there all the time. I have a lot of friends there. I'm from like Southern California, so I like the sun, and it's wonderful. I don't like when it gets cold or when it's cloudy. But I went over there and to Seattle, and everything's just so green. And this might be a little off topic, but I was just noticing, I was like, this is beautiful. And then I realized, wow, yeah, it rains so much there. It rains like 200 days, a year. And then I was like, wow, like what a symbolic like place. It's like, it is so beautiful and so green, but it has to have the rain. It has to have the darkness. It has to have, like coldness, and like, and for it to be so beautiful, for it to be so green. And so I think I don't know, this like the darkness informs the light, essentially.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, we took this real deep, real fast, Jack. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Get two therapists on a call and watch out. But to go with your metaphor even further, like that's such a beautiful metaphor about Seattle, and like it can't be that green and that beautiful without the rain, right? And I think one of the themes I notice sometimes in conversations I have with people in therapy or just other people I know in my life is like, we want all the green, And then we think it's a problem when it's raining. I mean, the rain is painful, and it is, if the rain is suffering, let's say, like, I don't wish that on my worst enemy. I don't want anyone to suffer. But sometimes we forget that there is a connection between, like, this verdant, green, beautiful possibility, and that is sometimes born of something, right? And that there is a process for that to happen, and it can't happen without water from somewhere.
Yeah. No, that is so true. And it's funny. Yeah, it's like as I was thinking about what you just said. Now I'm even thinking about my own life, and a lot of people, when they see me, I'm this bubbly person, and I'm very loud, outgoing, and I like to have fun. And I feel like the last few years, even, like there has been this almost a shift in the depth of my joy, because I've come in contact with, at least, yes, some of the pain in my life. And I think, like, as you said, it's like, it's natural. It's like, I wouldn't want to feel any pain. Like, I don't want to. I don't want to put that on my worst enemy. And so, yeah, it's like, I don't want to look at it. I don't want to, and I don't want to. And you push it down. And it's like, yeah, I can only present this joyful person. I can only present, this person that people want me to be. Well, that's what it feels like. And yet, yeah, I feel like at least my feeling of joy, my feeling of happiness is exponentially, it's like, it's deepened so much, because, yeah, I've realized, wow, yeah, this pain, maybe I don't even know why this pain is here. Maybe I don't fully understand it. And I can try to learn to understand it. And, but also, yeah, like, maybe it's actually not bad to have pain in life. Yeah, like, it hurts, and it is terrible at times. And yet, wow, like, what if we could actually be able to actually walk through the pain? What if we had the strength to do that? Like, what if we were able to tolerate it a little bit, and, yeah, say, like, and maybe that's being with people. Maybe that's, yeah, me sharing it with a friend that I'm really close to, or, sharing it with family member, my sister or something. I'm just like, yeah, I'm really struggling through this, and this hurts. And I think the more that I've been open to doing that, the more that I've said, you know what, maybe I'm not perfect. Maybe I don't have to be this joyful person all the time. The more that I found support, the more that I found connection, the more that I found actually my deepest relationships, because I think it's in really that pain, that connection with others, of holding that, because it is scary, but yeah, holding that together, I found such meaningful relationships, and, yeah, my joy has deepened. So
I don't quite understand how pain carves out a deeper space for joy in us. But I completely resonate with what you're saying. Like,
yeah,
I think that's how I would say it, that there's some mysterious way in which pain carves out a deeper space for joy. And pain is almost like this wellspring of joy. I don't know. But I think,
yeah, I get what you're saying.
But I think perfectionism is the enemy of a lot of good, because when we're perfect, it's harder for us to know that we need other people. It's harder for us to have the vulnerable moments you were talking about, of connecting with someone and saying, I'm really struggling with this. Like, they can't see us as a vulnerable person who needs them if we're perfect. And so I'm just seeing how you having that humility to go to people in your life and say, I'm struggling with something, I'm in pain about something, like that's created more connection and deeper joy.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's something so vulnerable too. Like, I think if you resonate with the perfectionism, the challenge, I think, is to show any amount of vulnerability. And I think it goes like deeper than that, because it's like, how much do I want to be vulnerable? Yeah, how much? Yeah, like do I? It's like I can be vulnerable, or I can really like say, wow, yeah, like there's so much pressure on me to like do all these things, and yeah, I don't think I can do this all on my own. When I think about like even just humans in general, it's like what we need other people. We need connection. Um, and I think for me, I think I'm saddened by, I think, places in my life where like I thought I could do it on my own, or like I felt maybe I didn't feel safe enough to go to other people too, and I think that's also sad. But yeah, I think it's so hard, because it really is this paradox of like pain and joy, and it's it's like how does that make any sense? Like it's difficult to, I think it's even difficult to express sometimes. Like even I think I'm having a hard time even sharing it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
I think you and I have both experienced it, and I feel like it's hard to articulate. So I'm like, oh gosh, like if teens and college students listen to this, they're gonna be like, what the, But
Hmm.
I mean, I'm going back to a moment where you said in this call, like you were saying, you were sort of reflecting on what you needed in moments where you weren't perfect.
Mm.
Um, I don't know. How do you think you might have needed someone to respond in moments like that?
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I think I needed people to honestly to say almost the same things that you would say to somebody that has, quote, succeeded, or has made it. So I think of things like, I wish people would tell me like, wow, like you put in so much effort, and like honestly, like it really doesn't matter what the product is, as much as like I see the work that you put in, and like amazing job, like you were learning, you were growing, you were developing. And I think, yeah, I think a part of me needed to hear that I don't have to have it all together, that I can, yeah, maybe be undone, and that's okay. Maybe I don't have to get whatever the grade is, for people to like me, or for them to care for me, or for them, to love me. I think I needed to hear that, yeah, I was worthy regardless of what grade I got, or if I didn't do perfectly on a assignment, test, or whatever it was. Yeah, worthiness, I think, is the word that comes to mind for me.
Worthiness. So your own worth, and
Mm-hmm.
needing to hear that message that your worth
Mm-hmm.
doesn't depend on your grades or your performance or your ability to produce anything. And it also sounded like, too, because I'm thinking also of like parents, who might listen to this and they're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? But it seems powerful to recognize the process and the effort that someone puts in, and to emphasize that more than the outcome.
Yeah.
Was part of what I was hearing as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the importance is the internal. It's well, how did this person, it's not about, like the product. It's not about like how well you did something. It's, what was my heart towards this assignment? What was, like, wow, Jack, like I really saw how much you cared about that. And like, I'm just so proud of you for even like, for trying and for putting in, the work that you did. Because I think a lot of kids grow up, with that, that reinforcement over and over. And, there's like, oh, they liked that, I'm going to do that again. Oh, I'm going to do that again. And that's almost kind of, I think, what we become is like, we're looking over here, like trying to see, reading the room, reading everything to see like, how do I do this in a way that they're really going to like this, or they're going to appreciate this, or I'm finally going to be enough. And I think at least I grew up, constantly yearning for, like trying to figure out what's going to be enough. And at least for me, I'm like, I wouldn't want any, kid, teenager, to grow up feeling that same way, feeling like I have to do this specific thing. I have to read the room constantly to, feel like I am worthy. It's I think it makes me sad to, think about that. That's how a lot of, I think me included, it's like, that's how I experienced it, and I'll leave it at that. But
yeah, it is really sad, and sad because also it's like an unwinnable game, right? Like it never will be enough, and there's not. This is my view, I guess, but like there's nothing that we will accomplish or achieve or produce for someone else that's gonna either be enough for them or feel like we are enough. And I think anytime we have that equation of like, if I do this, then I will feel worthy, then it's impossible because we can't earn our worth, right? So our worth has to be, have deeper roots than that and not be based on what we do. But it seems like so many of our ways that we grow up and our systems in society, I would say this even about workplaces, like that they, unless we're really careful, we can be in those systems and our wires get crossed about, my worth is equals what I do. Rather than like, I'm worthy just because of who I am. I have inherent value.
Right?
It's such a deep, tough identity issue. Yeah.
It's so hard. And I think even for me now, I think it's still, like I'm still at a place where I'm like, I wish that I could see that more of what you just said, that like I have innate value, and so it's a process, and it's I think constantly like reminding myself this, and even doing like just like positive talk, towards myself, that like I'm doing a good job, and like you did your best under the circumstances, and maybe it didn't turn out how you wanted, and that's okay. And you were still valued. You were still loved. You were still cherished by so many people. And yeah, I think even that too, it's like, I wish I would have heard that wow, like you were like so cherished by so many people, and you have such value. And like at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter. Honestly, it really doesn't. Yeah, it's like, if this is my kid, it's like, well, I love you so much, and I want what's best for you, and I want to see you succeed. And I think there is that, that yearning. Yeah, it's like, I just want my kid to do amazing, and like accomplish all these things, and that is so great. And yeah, I hope that at least that child knows how much they're for, how much they mean to those around them. And yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's the truth, right? Like, you are loved and cherished and valued by so many people, regardless of what you do or don't do. It is just not even about that. It can feel like it's about that because people want to say things like when you graduate from grad school, right? People are going to be like, "Congrats, Jack," and they're being kind, right? But they're just saying the social thing that people say. But like, it's really hard to kind of decode that sometimes in life and understand, like, oh, people would be proud of me. Like, if I flunked out of grad school, they'd be proud of me for who I am as a person.
Yeah, that is yeah, I was even thinking about that recently, of just like, yeah, like I think there's so many people that are like proud of me, and they share with me how proud they are of me. And um yeah, and I think even like as I'm graduating, there's probably going to be a lot of meaningful like moments, where people share, but yeah, I think it is this weird feeling um, of like, if somebody says that they are proud, um, at least mean, obviously I know, but all that to say, I think there's this feeling of, oh, it feels a little weird. Like, I think I'm yearning for something else. Like, I'm like, that's great, that you were proud of me. And yet, like, who do you see?
Mhm.
Who are you seeing in me? It's like, it's not, is it, the great, or is it, wow, like Jack has worked so much, and he has like been able to go through stuff and go through the highs and lows, and really challenge himself and learn new things about himself. And wow, like the person that he is becoming is great. That's and I think in all capacity, I think that's what people, and I think we all need that at a certain point, that, yeah, like who you are, Jack, or who you are, Jackie, or, whatever it is, it's like, yeah, I think that's what we need to hear. And I think growing up, I wish that, yeah, I think I would have heard more of, well, I'm proud of who you are becoming. Yeah.
In our conversation today, you've mentioned a few times like someone seeing you and being seen. And I guess I have an assumption that we all, as humans, want to be heard, want to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm wondering if you see any connection between like perfectionism and being seen. Like, do you think perfectionism is kind of like a attempt to be seen by other people or be seen a certain way by other people? What would you say about that?
Yeah, I think for me, I think perfectionism is, I think, yeah, I think there's a part of it that I think is definitely like, I want people to see this side of me. Like I want them to, know that like I'm doing well, or, like I want them to know that, like I'm strong, if that makes sense. And I think that's I think this perfectionism like pool is like, it's like I go towards it as, yeah, then people will see, how like quote good I'm doing, or that I'm capable, and I think the connection piece, I think possibly as well is like, yeah, will people accept me if I'm perfect? Like, will I lose connection with people if I really show this other side that's, yeah, maybe a little more messy, a little more crazy, a little more maybe fun, maybe a little more, it's like, will I lose that connection? Which I do have an answer for that question, but
What's the answer? Tell us the answer, Jack.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I think there's such a big fear that people just push away, or they won't like. Yeah, wow. I've never had somebody say, "Oh, Jack's imperfect," like, or we're not gonna hang out with him anymore. Like he's really screwed up. But I think, honestly think the more that I've shown my imperfection, the more that I've shown, wow, yeah, maybe I don't have it all together. Oh, I'm like, even right now, I'm like even thinking about how I'm feeling about like grad school, and like, yeah, there are moments where I am very overwhelmed, like moments where I have to just stop, and I have to like connect with my body, because I'm having physical like tightness in my chest or my shoulders, and it is so much. And I think the pull to like, even with like my therapist friends, where it's like they know they need me, and they have so much compassion, just like I have for them. But like I have a pull to like share any of that, with them. It's like, yeah, will they disconnect from me? But I think the more that I've shared, the more that I have been open, and obviously, I think that there is something about being with the right people. I wouldn't expect everybody to be able to handle, like if I am overwhelmed. But when I pick those people in my life that I feel that they are safe, that they can hold, and they've gained my trust, yeah, I've never really experienced them to be projecting in any way, and I've actually found them to be, honestly, like, after I've talked to some of these people, it's like, wow, like I'm actually not alone in all of this. Like, you have anxiety too. It's like, wow, like maybe we're all humans. We all have experiences. Maybe we all have anxiety at times. Maybe we all have frustration at times. Maybe, yeah, these things are natural, and so, yeah, as I've learned to be more vulnerable, again, there's like this moment of, wow, like my relationships have deepened so much, because, yeah, perfectionism it's you're never going to quite reach whatever. That's the thing about perfectionism, is you're never going to reach whatever you want. And I think part about being vulnerable is when you are vulnerable with somebody, and there is this feeling of acceptance, there is this like this rawness and realness to the relationship, where it's not just me with, this mask on, them with their mask on. Like, I'm like going to take off the mask and say, this is really scary. And you're going to see my face right now. And maybe like it's crying, or maybe it's whatever it is. And I think I'm even getting teary right now, because it's like, when I had been in those spaces and people saw me, like, it's some of the most healing experiences I ever had. I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to have everything together. I can just be. I can just be. So.
Yeah. So powerful, Jack. And I feel myself getting a bit emotional hearing you talk about it. I think perfectionism makes a lot of false promises. And I was reflecting on it, hearing you talk, like perfectionism promises us that people are not going to leave, or that we won't be alone. Maybe that people will like us or approve of us. But it's actually the opposite, I think. I think when we get to, take the mask off, and, bit by bit, as we build trust with someone, we're a little more vulnerable with them. We show them a little bit more of our, whatever, just our human mess, right? Or just our imperfections, or our weaknesses, or our flaws, or however you want to say it. Like that's actually where the love is. Like that's actually where the connection is. And ironically, like the more we can do that, in, I think we have to be kind of measured, right? We're not going to like trauma dump the first time we meet a person, but yeah, as I said, so building up trust with people over time, and being vulnerable to share parts of ourselves that are harder to show, that actually allows us to be loved by people more full circle, because we've let them into these different rooms of our heart that were locked, and I feel like perfectionism is trying to say, like, oh, if you don't show anyone like how you're struggling, then you're never going to be alone and people will like you. And I think it's actually kind of the opposite. Like, it's actually, I can think of experiences in my own life and with people that I know, where it was actually their mistake that endeared me to them and like made me love them more, because I got to see kind of, I don't know. I guess the expression that's coming to mind is like, I got to see them fall on their face, but, I don't want to tell the fullness of this story on YouTube, but like you as a student, like you saw me have like a health crisis on Zoom. Yeah. If you remember this, like when I was a professor, like I was teaching on Zoom, I had a health crisis in the middle of class. You saw that, like you were the student who ran to get help to make sure that I'd be okay. And that was a very human moment for me as a professor, right? Where like I couldn't be perfect in my professional role or whatever. And man, the things I learned out of that experience, we could write a book. I don't want to go into it, but do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's almost like the things that go wrong in our mind are like the things that people might remember, or actually get to know us better, love us more because of those things.
Yeah, that is so true. Yeah, I think I don't think you can relate to perfectionism.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's impossible to relate to it. And I think, as you said, it's like those experiences of, like, I didn't even have control over this, or like, I see this thing in this person, this mistake that they made or whatever, it actually drew me closer to them. I think that is because it's relevant. It's like, wow, I can relate to that. Yeah, like you go through the same thing too, or it's like, oh my gosh, like I feel safe enough around you because yeah, it doesn't feel like there's a pressure to have everything together with you. Because yeah, here you are saying, yeah, I did make a mistake. It's like,
Mhm.
wow, like if you can say that, then maybe I can too. Yeah, maybe I can acknowledge something. Maybe I can, yeah, allow some of this that I'm holding on to. Yeah, I can allow a little bit of it out. Um, and so yeah, I think I agree. It makes even that experience as you're sharing. Like I remember that very vividly, and never once did I ever feel like like you were a bad professor, or like that you were anything else but you. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like I gotta take action. And yeah, I think that even that for me was like, yeah, I think our professors are human too. Like our therapists are human too. Like everybody
Mhm.
is human. And that's funny that you brought that up. Yeah, I haven't thought about that in quite a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
I'll give like a less serious example of like a moment where I reflected on this like same
Mhm.
idea.
Mhm.
But I was talking to a college student once, and there was this band that he loved, and he really, really, really wanted to see them in concert. And he was like, I hope they play this one song. It's like my favorite song. And I finally got tickets. And he was also like, I'm gonna take this girl that I like. So it's like this big deal, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So he finally sees the band in concert, and then I see him afterward, and he's telling me about the concert. And he's like, yeah, they played that one song and they messed it up, and it was my favorite part.
Oh.
And it's such a simple story, but for me, it was really like, oh, this is such a great example of like the mistake was his favorite part, not
Mm.
the perfect parts. The mistake part was his favorite part. And I didn't even really ask him why, but I just kind of got in the moment like, if you see your favorite band and they make a mistake, like
Mm. Mhm.
it's memorable, it's relatable. Depending on how they handled it, it could be funny. You feel more liberated that it's okay to make a mistake. You see how to handle that in front of all these people who paid to be there. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's that idea for me of like, that was his favorite part, Jack, like, not the
Mhm.
songs that were great.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, the even in his favorite song, it's like
Mhm.
the part that, like he probably knew so well, and he could maybe play it on an instrument or sing it out loud. And yet, yeah, it's like, what is it about that really, yeah, something like stood there with him. And so it almost felt like, wow, this is better than the thing that I've memorized. This is better than the song that I know. Yeah, but something about it stuck with him. Something, yeah, it was different. It was imperfect. It was. Um, I even think about, as you saying that, like art. Art is. I always tell people, I'm like, if you want to be an artist, it's going to be hard to be a perfectionist, because I feel like art is imperfect. Like that is what it is. And yeah, it's so beautiful, and so many people are able to connect with it because it's different, and every piece is different. And the I don't know. I tried to do like a painting. I used to sketch a little bit, and I always get so frustrated because it's like I'd always screw up, and then I would have to erase it, and I would keep on doing. I would stick with the same sketch for like a whole week because I couldn't figure out how to make sure it was going to be perfect. And then it was so funny because my friend did a sketch, and it wasn't perfect at all. And yeah, I was like, this is phenomenal. Like, I'm like, this is great. I don't know how you made such a masterpiece here. And I don't know, it just made me think of like, wow, like, yeah, some of like the things that are imperfect, like whether it's a song, like your favorite band playing, and um, it is so much more memorable, and it sticks out to us. And I don't know even really what the science is behind that, but there's something about, yeah, like these imperfect things that actually attract us. Like there's an attraction to it. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
And it's human, right? Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. You're giving me deep thoughts, Jack, because now I'm like, well, when AI makes a mistake, like,
Mhm.
so like if I use Midjourney to like make an image and the person has 6 fingers, like that's not relatable for me. Like AI's mistakes are not relatable, but for some reason, when other humans, whether it's mistakes or just flaws or weaknesses or like imperfections, like not even mistakes, right? Just like other humans struggle, like that's relatable. That's compelling. And when someone is perfect and like never misses a beat and is like always perfect, it feels, I don't know, it feels intimidating, or it feels like I can't even like measure up. It's not even anything that's spoken, right? It's just like
Mhm.
an unspoken like, oh gosh, I'm not gonna make the cut with this person.
Yeah. Yeah. That's relatable. Yeah, I feel like I can't make the cut with this person. Yeah, they've got everything together. Everything is, yeah, every I is dotted and every box is checked. And um, I think even again, I'm like, that just sounds, yeah, it's like it is the most unrelatable thing to me, like being somebody that used to be a perfectionist. I'm like, even while I was trying to be a perfectionist, that sounds unrelatable, like um, you are, and all of us, like we try to do things to the best of our ability. And I think part of it, and I think that's where it's also hard, um, where it's like I want to do everything at the best of my ability. And what's the difference between perfectionism and that? Like how do I do everything, like I put all of my effort into this, and how do I also not do this and like kill myself essentially trying to do this? um, and that's really difficult for, I think, for me right now. Is like, yeah, what's the difference? And like, because I do want to do things well, but maybe again that's a pull again towards that perfection mentality.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have answers about this. I'm gonna kick a question to you back about it, but like, first off, let me say, like, I don't put 100% of myself into everything in my day. Like, I put a measure of myself into everything in my day. I put a percentage of my energy into everything in my day. I mean, I'm the same person from 24/7, but I can't put all my energy in everything because then I wouldn't have any energy left, I wouldn't have any energy left after eating my breakfast.
Yeah,
But
yeah, you're right.
but okay. I used to say to therapy clients when we were talking about perfectionism, I used to say there's a difference between perfection and excellence.
Mm.
And I don't know, as we're talking about it, like I'm sort of putting that under the microscope. Like, would I say that now? Like, I'm not sure. I wouldn't be a therapist who's like open to changing my mind over the years. Not to
Mm.
contradict myself, but if I'm growing as a person, like I'm going to have
Yeah.
different perspectives as I grow, right? But what
Mhm.
do you think about that? Like a spirit of excellence,
Mm.
does that still feel like too much pressure as a step down from like, we're not aiming for perfectionism, but excellence is okay? Or is that still too much?
Yeah, yeah. It's hard because I think I want to swing, the other way. That's like, oh, everything's
What's the
fine.
other way?
I feel like
Don't care about it. Just
it'll
be on
work
your
out.
surfboard and
Exactly, it'll work out. Um, um, yeah, I think that's. I think that's still a hard one for me,
Yeah.
because I think there is still this pull to be perfect.
Hmm.
Um, that's why I'm saying I'm recovering. I'm still recovering. Yeah, I think it's hard to figure out a word that I would describe, like, yeah, how do I do things well and not, yeah, push myself all the way to this perfectionist mentality. Um, I right now I really love the phrase "good enough,"
Hmm.
um, and I think that has been something that I've held to, of like, well, what does good enough look like? Like, if I can't be perfect, yeah, maybe I can be just good enough. Like, and like good enough and my different. And I think again, what you said, I think is really, really insightful, because I can't put 100% of my effort just into eating breakfast. Like I I can't. Like it's like there is a certain percentage of my capacity like I can give to breakfast. There's a certain percentage of my capacity that I can give to to even this talk. A certain percentage I can give to my friends when I have dinner with them tonight. And so it's I think that's the hard part, is like, yeah, I think maybe in it's as a culture, I think now, but it's like it's just this grind mentality, and you give 100% effort into everything that you're doing, and it's just not sustainable. And I'm like, and I'm still trying to realize that. And so, yeah, what does good enough look like? What does good enough look like in my job that I'm in? What does good enough look like in this interview? What does good enough look like? And I've been trying to almost, this reframe from like, yeah, what does doing your absolute best look like, to, yeah, I actually have a good amount of things on my plate, and my capacity is maybe not going to be as much for some of these things, and that's okay too. Like I can't do everything. I can't be everywhere. I can't do everything at the same time. And I think that's also like realizing my limits, and I think that's really hard too, because it's like I don't want to realize. I don't want to look at that. Because God forbid that Jack has limits. And I say that to myself sometimes. Yeah, I can have limits, and I think that's human as well. So
Absolutely. Yeah. God forbid Jack be human and have limits.
yeah. Oh man, yeah, that would be devastating.
Well, you already gave a few examples of this, but I just love that phrase, good enough. Um, I feel like that's such a helpful like phrase for someone who's struggling with perfectionism, for any of us as we struggle with perfectionism or, getting through our day. It's like, what is good enough, right? I think there's a lot of wisdom in just being able to see that.
Mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm.
yeah. So I don't know. I want to ask a question about that, but I'm not even sure what my question is. Like, how do you know when something's like good enough? How do you make that call?
It's a good question. Yeah, yeah. What is good enough? I think good enough is, I think it's doing what you can in the context of your life. So I think it's, yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna put effort into, um, I'm trying to think of a good example of this, but I'm gonna put. I have a paper coming up that I'm writing. I've been thinking about it a lot, and now I'm actually going to start like actually physically writing it. And I want to do good work, but at the same time, yeah, I've got my job. I have clients. I have friendships. I have my family. I have my own hobbies that I still want to engage with. Like I go skimboarding, which I don't know if you know what that is, but it's really fun.
Mhm.
And yeah, like I want to go on hikes, and yeah, so there's all of these things that are pulling me, or like that I want to do. And then here's this paper. So it's like, how do I write this paper in a way where I want to engage with the paper, but also engage with the rest of my life? How do I balance this paper with everything else? And yes, I'm going to have to put time aside for this if I want to do it. Like that's just the reality if I don't put any time aside. So it's like, what is going to be, I think like, yeah, is going to be enough time that I can write this paper without my life, this other part of my life. Yeah, without it being super weakened, or, like I'm just avoiding this whole other piece of who I am. I think that's where it gets like, oh, whoa, I'm doing too much if I'm avoiding my hobbies. Like I think one of my professors said, they're like, if you were not doing your hobbies anymore, then like there's something wrong. I was like, that's very true. And I'm like thinking about it in class. I'm like, oh, I haven't done any of my hobbies in quite some time.
Oh, dang.
So it's like, yeah, how do I have a balanced life? And if I feel like my life is getting unbalanced, then I need to check in and say, yeah, what do I need to change to make sure that my life stays balanced? Where my social, my biological, my my psychological, all these parts of myself are being fueled, being sewed into. So that's a really good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that. So it's a good question.
Yeah. Hearing
Well,
you talk it through. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to ask, do you have an answer to that? Would you say
Like,
there's?
how do I know when something's good enough?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
He throws the challenging question back at me. I think for me, it depends on the thing. So I don't know. I look at my process around it. So, like, if I'm writing an email, I'll write the email. I might read it over once, and then I'm going to hit send. I'm not going to read it multiple times, not because I don't care, but just because that's good enough, right? Like,
Yeah,
I typed it, I read it once, and for me, that's the process that's good enough.
yeah.
And so I think it's a process thing for me. Now that we talk about it, didn't realize that till this moment. So thank you for asking.
Mm-hmm.
But in therapy, I think it's the most challenging for me to think about, like as a therapist, what is good enough.
Yeah.
I have a therapist friend. He works at APU, but he says you kind of have to be able to hold two things at the same time as a therapist. One is that you can only really give a small breadcrumb to a person.
Mm.
And at the same time, that breadcrumb could change their life. So it's kind of like you have to hold that you have a very, very small role. Kind of like Mother Teresa said, we can't do great things. We can only do small things with great love, right? So you have to be able to hold that we only really have a breadcrumb for someone, and that breadcrumb could change their life. And both of those are true.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess I'm sharing breadcrumbs. And if I've shared a few breadcrumbs in a session, then maybe that's good enough.
Yeah.
And Yeah, it depends on the thing for me. Lately, I've taken up a new hobby of, I just got a bike. It's like my first bike as an adult.
Wow.
And this is going to be a really public, embarrassing confession, but every time I have ridden the bike, I have fallen.
Oh.
Because it's like I'm a runner, and so biking is new, and so the like riding it is no problem, but it's the stopping, like the getting off the bike.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I have fallen. And so, but was it good enough? Yeah, because I went out, I rode my bike. Like, yeah, I fell, but like, it's all right. I have a few bruises, but like, nothing that was a deal breaker.
Mm-hmm.
I had fun, got outside, enjoyed nature, got my heart pumping, and that was good enough, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it depends on the thing for me, but it's more about like the process. You know, if I'm making a meal in the kitchen, like that's not my gift. And so I'd say good enough is like, no one got food poisoning would be good enough.
Oh, that's good. That's so good. And you're doing it. I think that's the thing. Yeah. It's like, you tried. And
Yeah.
you had fun doing it. And it's like, wow, that's like, yeah, I'm regularly a runner. And yeah, here I am biking, doing something new, getting outside, getting, exercising and, trying out this new skill. And wow, yeah, it's like, doesn't have to look maybe a certain way. It's just, again, like almost like, yeah, you're having fun, you're playing in a sense. Mm-hmm.
And to take this to a whole other meta level, like being on YouTube was actually this process for me as well of like, what is good enough and how do I show up in a way that is more human and is not perfect. I think I've been doing YouTube for maybe a year and a half now. And at the beginning, Jack, like the videos were very like well produced and also edited so that like my mistakes were cut out, or like when my tongue got tied, we cut that out, or like if like the cameraman was laughing, we cut it out, or and it took me like, I guess, a year and a half to now this is an unedited format for the most part. It's so much more human to have people like you come on and share their story. And it took me probably a year and a half to figure out that like my perfectionism about the early videos wasn't as relatable.
Wow. Yeah.
It's funny, right? Because like I was more in professor mode, like, there's these evidence-based mental health concepts I can teach, and it's good, but
yeah,
also it's stories are so important, if not more important.
Yeah, and I think not just I think stories, but also just connection and relationship. I think that's so important, and I think that's honestly what is one of honestly, I think for me, it's the biggest healing aspect of my life has been relationship, and like all these, as you say, like I have all these topics that I could share about, but wow, like none of those are really going to do as much unless I have connection, unless I have relationship, unless I'm like, yeah, getting to know somebody. That's really beautiful. Yeah.
You were helping me reflect too, as you were talking about good enough, about like when you were talking about your paper and working on that, and then having these other aspects of your life. It was just dawning on me that like the sooner we can say that something is good enough, the less consuming it has to be, right? Like if you were not willing to say that your paper is good enough at some point and like call it, it could, you could just let it consume your like weeks of your life and like all of this time, and you could never see your family or friends or go skimboarding. But the sooner you can say like, okay, this is good enough, or in my case, like, okay, that's my process and I'm done now. Like,
yeah.
The less consuming it has to be.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's so true. I think it's like, I almost feel like my mentality has changed from like, this has to be perfect to get it done and it's good enough. Like, get the paper done, write whatever it's asking for you to write, write the email. Now, it's like, obviously, again, there's what you said, also there's a process here. It's like, okay, is this an important paper? How important is this paper? Oh, okay, so it's part of my grade for just this class. What grade do I have in the class? Oh, I've got 100%. Oh, maybe I don't need to, or I got a 95%. Oh, maybe I don't need to put as much effort into, making this the most polished paper ever, versus, I've got a project, or, I'm writing my dissertation here. Yeah, maybe I need to put a little bit more effort. Maybe I do need to go a little bit of an extra mile, because this is actually very important and it affects every other aspect of my life. And I can, maybe set a couple hours more aside this for a couple weeks to really, make sure that, I'm really investing in something that's I'm passionate about, something that it's important to me. So I think again, it depends on the thing. Now that you even say it, yeah.
Yeah. And we have to be able to kind of gauge that, right? Like, how important is this thing?
Mm-hmm.
What are the implications of it? Who else might be affected by it as well?
Yeah.
And yeah, like if I'm submitting a college application essay, that's different from like sending a 3-sentence email to my mom. No offense to my mom. I love my mom dearly, but the typo is going to be more forgiving in the email to my mom. You know what I mean? Like, it's really okay.
That's true.
Yeah. So I don't know why, Jack, but before our conversation, I was reflecting on like things I wanted to ask you. I know why I was reflecting on that, but I wanted to ask you about kind of the process of like applying to undergrad and then the process of applying as a college student to grad school. And I now realize it kind of ties in with this whole perfectionism thing. But so the question is like, if someone's listening to this and let's say they're in high school.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they're in that pressure pipeline of like applying to colleges. You're on the other side of that tunnel now. What advice would you give them?
Yeah. Yeah, I think if I put myself back in that place, it was, I think, a very scary time, because I think I wanted to. This is a big decision, and I think after doing it and applying 2 times now, I think that I did put myself through a lot of turmoil of like, well, what is going to be best for me? I was asking myself, like, what are the pros and cons of this? I'm making lists, like which schools did I get into? Is this going to, this school has this, and for this specific thing, and do I want to do that? And there's so many questions that I had. And so like, I feel like little answers, I was like, I don't know. And I was constantly searching for the right answer. Always looking for, what is the right thing? Well, it has to be right. It's got to be perfect. And I think if I would have gone back, I think my advice would be to say, first off, I think I would say breathe. And then I would say we make thousands of decisions every day. And this is one of many. And yes, it's going to affect, maybe where you live or what degree you get. But it's just another decision towards this next step in life. And maybe there's multiple right answers. Maybe, yeah, all the schools are actually a good place to go. And like you're never gonna know what, what's gonna happen at every single school that you could go to. But I think it's really important to just, I think zone in on, obviously what school do I feel like I'm going to get the education that I'm yearning for. And then once I have those schools, I think it's more about just, looking at, is there a specific program that I enjoy more? And I think really even the interview process with some of the schools was so vastly different. And for me, I think my values, it was very evident when I started actually talking to the people that were from the school of like, oh, I really like you guys. Like I might not love, this specific niche program, but I can see how I could fit in here. I could see how I could develop here. And so I think, there's all those logistics, but I think once you hone it down to the schools that, wow, like I like these schools, I think know that, I don't think there is necessarily a wrong answer. People might try to tell you that people, there's so much pressure to pick the best, but what really is the best? The best is whatever's best for you. It's not what, just because UCLA has a big name, doesn't mean that it's the best for you. And like for me, it's like, I went to a small college. I could have gone to a way bigger college that, the name really, everybody knew the name, but it wasn't best for me. And so I think, figure out what's best for you. And I think there's more right answers than wrong answers. So.
And multiple good right answers in a sense, multiple good options. Yeah. I also sometimes talk with college students who have had to change course. So maybe they've had to change their major. I shouldn't say had to. They decided to change their major, or for whatever reason, they had kind of a pause in their education, took a semester off or took a year off, or they changed schools, so they transferred. And sometimes when I talk to those folks, they feel like it's this like devastating thing that's gonna haunt them for the rest of their lives. And I'm just wondering, what would you say to someone that's feeling that way? Like, because they changed their major, it's like horrible.
Yeah. I don't know what this, I think the stat, I had to look, you need to fact check me on this one, but I want to say the stat for changing your major in undergrad is it's something close to like 2 or 3 times.
Is like an average?
Yeah, I believe it is. I should need to look it up. Don't trust me, but I think that's.
No, I want to know. I want to know it now. Yeah.
Not to dismiss that experience, I think that there is a lot of, especially transitioning out of something. It's like, I wanted to do this, and then I got into the field. It's like, oh, this is nothing like what I thought it was going to be. Or, it's like I just hate the major that I'm in, and I just want to get out and do something else, whatever that might be. I think this is your time to, I think, explore, because as much as undergrad, it's so funny actually that I think undergrad for me, when I think about it, obviously I'm a couple years out now, but it's like I learned so much from undergrad, but I think the things that I really retained was like, how do I learn? And how do I, how do I be curious, and how do I like challenge other beliefs? And, like yeah, what do I believe about this, and how do I integrate, whatever this topic is into myself, into my belief system, into how I want to use it. And it's all that to say, I think it matters what major you pick, but there's something about getting your undergraduate education that is, no matter which major you go into, like there is so much value in, yeah, just going to class. And I feel like the classes that I took, like they weren't even in my major, and I feel like I learned so much more. That's kind of a hit to you, but I'm not trying to.
I believe you. No, I was a psych major undergrad, and I took an astronomy class.
Yes,
That was like and like a Russian literature class. Like it was so enriching, right? It's so awesome to take classes outside your major.
Yeah. And so all that to say, I think I would say, yeah, like just keep on going. Like it's natural that, yeah, maybe this is actually a good opportunity for you to change. Like I think about people that are so locked into their major, or they feel so much pressure to be, I need to be a nurse because, my parents were nurses, or, I need to go into business because, my dad owned a business. And yeah, I'm wondering, yeah, what an opportunity. Like, how bold are you to actually say, yeah, maybe I don't want to do this. And yeah, this other major actually is a lot more exciting to me, or this career is a lot more thrilling, or it seems more enjoyable to me. Like, how bold of you to actually take a step in that direction. I think for me, I'm like, that is fantastic, because I think I've seen so many people that have stayed with something, and now they are, yeah, there's some regret there, because yeah, I wish I would have went with what I felt was right. And so all that to say, yeah, I think that's awesome that somebody would want to change. And even if it looks a little bit different, it's like, good for you, because you're choosing what you want to do, and it seems like you're taking control of your own education. So yeah.
All right. I love the reframe. So yeah, you're right. It's bold, right? It's bold to call it and be like, I need to change schools. I need to change majors. I need a semester off. That takes a lot of courage, also because you're probably doing something that like your friends are not doing, or the people in your major may not be doing. That's bold.
It's brave. Yeah.
All right, Jack. Well, I promised you that we would be wrapping up before dinner time.
Okay.
And it kind of depends on your definition of dinner time, but before I ask you my final question, is there anything else that you want to share or talk about or ask?
Really putting me on the spot there. No, what I would say is, yeah, I don't think nobody can be you. And I think when it comes to, I think looking at yourself and looking at just who you are is, I think you bring anybody, they bring such a unique and beautiful and vibrant and human, everybody has, it's like different levels of comedy and different levels of seriousness, and different levels of this and different levels of that. And I think that is the most beautiful thing, that like we can all come together and experience one another in such a different way, and we're not all going to be the same. And that is what makes us humanity. Is cultured, and it's diverse, and people are going to have differences of opinions and different beliefs and different ways about going about relationships, and different ways about, like how am I going to engage with this? And all that to say, I think our uniqueness is what makes us the most beautiful. Our humanness, our imperfections, our imperfections are what makes us the most beautiful in my mind. So
Absolutely. That was so beautifully said.
what can I say?
Okay, so a final question for you, Jack. What is something you wish you knew when you were younger? I feel like we've kind of touched on this throughout our call here, but like if you really were to sit with that question, like when you were younger, what is something that you wish you really knew?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I wish I would have known. I think I wish I would have known that I was, cherished and loved and will be loved and cherished and in different ways. But that I have innate value, and that I think people see the beauty, I think, in me. I think I didn't see that then, and I think I see it now. And yeah, I wish, like, I think about, like, if I could picture myself and, like, as a little boy, or like a 8-year-old, 10-year-old, 13-year-old, and I think I would tell them now. I'd be like, wow, like, you were doing so great. Like, just keep on going. Like, you got it. Like, I'm cheering you on. So yeah, that's the image that comes to mind for me.
That's so beautiful. And it's true for you, it's true for me, it's true for anyone listening to this, that we have inherent value and people see us for who we are, and they love and cherish us and treasure us. And we don't need to earn our way toward that by what we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're cheering you on.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for being here, Jack.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Of course.